So I want to say that I am so impressed. I actually went to get my gavel. When I was sworn as chair in 2018, my grandchildren said, Gigi, we knew you were important because you have a hammer. But I don't even have to use it because you guys are all so well-behaved and well-trained because you're counselors. So I want to welcome everybody to our all councils meeting on June 21st, 2024, and recognize that there are various areas of the municipality as well as our regional council and many important staff and community members here as well. So thank you for attending. I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Chinootan peoples. I do this and I want to reflect on what it means in doing important community work like we are engaging in collectively today. And I also want to acknowledge my own individual relationship to this land. As a settler, one of the most important aspects of my individual journey towards truth and reconciliation has been to listen. And I am continually grateful that the community continues to share their stories and their concerns with me. As well as the chair of the region, I know that I carry a large responsibility to ensure that it is not just myself on an individual level listening and acting, but that as a government, we are listening and creating action in the community. I'm offering this acknowledgement as one of many actions that I am personally and the region largely is taking toward reconciliation. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. So first up today, we're going to have a presentation by an all-star cast. I would like to call on Patrick Gaskin, President and CEO of the Cambridge Memorial Hospital, Mark Pham, President of St. Mary's General Hospital, and Ron Gagnon, President and CEO of Grand River Hospital, to provide their presentation on the future of hospital healthcare in Waterloo region. Thank you for coming, and I will turn the podium, and I imagine you have slide decks too. I'll turn it all over to you.
Thanks very much, Karen. Chair Redmond, my apologies. Someone is going to control our slide deck for us, I'm hoping. And thank you very much. Who am I looking at for next slide? Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. As Chair Redmond said, I'm Patrick Gaskin. I'm President and CEO at Cambridge Memorial Hospital, and together with my colleagues, Mark Pham, President at St. Mary's General Hospital, and Ron Gagnon, the President and CEO at Grand River Hospital, we're excited to share some updates on the activities related to hospital care in our region. Our pronouns for all of us are he, him. Today we want to be we're here to highlight the community's growing needs, how we care together, today and tomorrow. Grand River and St. Mary's will speak a little bit about their work towards a merger, and then we're here to answer all the questions you might have. And Ron and I agreed that Mark would take all the difficult questions. So Ron, over to you.
Thanks, Patrick, and it's great to be here again this year, and happy to be here with my partners from the other hospitals in this region. So where I'm going to start, which is probably 2 slides from this one, is information that you're likely very familiar with. And next one. There we go. So, I know as a region, all the municipalities are very familiar with this. And for the last several years, our region has been experiencing exponential growth, and right now we're the fastest growing region in the province. And the growth is projected to continue. We saw a slide, we being Mark and I saw a slide a couple weeks ago that shows projections having us at the same pace as Mississauga by 2050. So that puts it into context of how big this region is growing to. And hospitals and the healthcare system are a big part of how we will be 1 million ready and how we're growing to that. So as we emerge from the pandemic, we're still facing some pretty significant challenges when it comes to the need for care, the health human resources to deliver that care, and the facilities in which we operate in. And regardless of that, our population continues to grow quite quickly, and it's far outpacing our healthcare resources that we currently have in our region. And the simplest example that I like to use is the emergency room at GRH at the KW site was designed for 179 visits per day. Right now, we're seeing an average of 224. And I can't remember the last day, it was actually lower than the design capacity. So that's something that we continue to have to struggle with. And for the next couple of slides, we're probably going to go a little bit back and forth, and then we get into a better rhythm. So back to Patrick.
Thanks, Ron. And thanks for cueing the slides, which I forgot to do for you. Mark, I'll remember that. Not yet, though. So in spite of the investments we've made to date, across the region, we're seeing a rapidly growing demand for hospital-based services that is outstripping the current capacity. We're not only seeing more patients, the patients presenting are sicker and more complex, increasing treatment times in the emergency department, for example. Across our system, the inpatient bed capacity generally operates at above 100%. And as Ron stated, we're facing a health human resource challenge, exacerbated by the strains on the capacity and the resources. So investments like those done at Cambridge Memorial to improve the infrastructure across the system are needed. Buildings are old, with limited opportunities to evolve to meet today's and to prepare for tomorrow's growth and needs. In addition to the rapid growth, the population in Waterloo region is increasingly diverse, and we need to remove the barriers to access in order to improve the health equity of our communities. Collaboration across the region, among the hospitals, and with the community health and social service partners is key to addressing these needs. Next slide, and over to Mark.
Thanks, Patrick. Good to see everyone today. So we are really excited to be part of the region's 1 Million Ready plan. Today, our hospitals already serve over 1.4 million people in our specialty programs, so we know what it means to serve a community and a population that size. But here in Waterloo region, we know our local community is going to grow, and that demand on emergency volume, inpatient volume, and all the hospital care is going to increase even more. And so every day, we are also planning, how do we improve hospital services to make sure we are part of that 1 Million Ready plan? We're actively partnering with our tech and innovation sectors to look at how we change the delivery of healthcare so that we can disrupt even our own models and get ready. We worked really closely with McMaster, University of Waterloo, Conestoga, Laurier, and others to look at how do we train up the next generation of healthcare leaders and attract them into our communities. And we're constantly working with the region as well on initiatives around equity, diversity, and inclusion, as Patrick just alluded to, and so much more. The work to first open the new site at Cambridge, it increases some of that capacity demand to get us 1 million ready. And as you'll hear later, our work on building the future of care together between St. Mary's and Grand River will help us get that much closer. If we turn to the next slide. So you've heard a bit about the demand challenge. We know that although we are getting ready with new builds of new hospital capacity, that is not tomorrow. Tomorrow is still challenges in our emergency departments, as Ron shared, and challenges in EMS offload times, which we know are important to all of our regional partners. Our emergency departments have seen a 20% growth over the last 3 to 5 years. That is because of challenges in primary care, access for everyone to their family doctors, is the impact after the pandemic of many people receiving their diagnosis much later. We're seeing cancers diagnosed in our emergency departments at a much higher rate than previously, because previously they were diagnosed by their primary care physicians in the cancer system. And that same applies to many other subspecialty needs. What that translates to is busier emergency departments, busier hospitals, and that impacts our EMS colleagues as well. Over the past year, we have seen our EMS offload times drop from an average of 1.5 hours to 3 hours down to 1 to 2 hours. That's a great progress, and yet still, we want our crews back on the road in 30 minutes, and so it's still too long. Yesterday, I was proud to see St. Mary's had about 20 crews come through the hospital, each at about 20 minutes. So we do have great glimmers of hope and great examples when things are working well and our teams are working well. And that's because of joint partnerships between the hospitals and our EMS colleagues around programs like Fit to Sit, where patients who are well enough to come and sit in our emergency department can be transferred from the EMS crew to our teams and sit in the emerge and be monitored by our nursing teams. By diverting patients into pharmacist care right in the hospital so they can get better access and service, having dedicated offload nurses, and through collaborations, again, in partnership, sharing data from the hospital and EMS back and forth so that each team can see what's the state, how many crews are coming in, what does the hospital look like, and what does that mean? But we're not only working on the problem right in the emerge and right with EMS. This is an impact of the rest of the hospital system. If our emergency department's busy, that means our hospital's busy. As Ron shared, we are often over 100% occupied, so more patients than beds we have. And that's because of changes in long-term care, That's changes in terms of the access for patients waiting for long-term care. And so we're also innovating on hospital-to-home programs and others where we can improve the access and care. We had a gentleman come through St. Mary's the other day, not quite the other day. He was about 95 years old. He came from a retirement home. He got admitted and he was in the hospital for 21 days. During that time, we launched a new hospital-to-home care program with St. Joseph's Healthcare. And in that, we were able to help place this patient in a new retirement home, because his original retirement home wouldn't take him given his new care challenges, to wrap around home care services so that that new retirement home could keep him at home, keep him well, and have now actually removed the home care services, and he's actually just better and on his own. He was slated for long-term care if we didn't have that kind of hospital-home model. And now we have an individual who's, again, well on his feet, a vibrant 95-year-old, but not coming back to the emergency department once during that home care visit, and not causing one more challenge to our EMS colleagues as well. So we're always innovating on what new programs can be as well. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Ron.
So across Waterloo Region and beyond, we are seeing, as Mark was saying, more patients. We're also seeing sicker patients. And Mark went through some of the reasons why that is. Delayed care, lack of access to primary care, lack of access to other services. And our hospital teams are working alongside not just one another, but also our partners in the community to try and drive some of those alternate solutions like Mark just alluded to. And one of the examples of how we've worked together over the last number of years, when I look back at our hospital bed capacity pre-pandemic, the number of beds that we had in Waterloo, Wellington on a per capita basis was actually lower than any OECD country. So through the advocacy work of all of the hospitals in this region, plus those in Waterloo, Wellington, we've been able to add just over 220 new beds, permanent beds, to just this region. And we need to continue that advocacy because even with that capacity, we're still seeing the occupancy challenges that Mark was talking about. So you're on the next slide, so you're moving me along, that's good. As a regional hospital system, each of our organizations is committed to recruiting and retaining top talent, providing exceptional patient-centered care with compassion, engaging with our communities and our patients, making sure that we're providing the right care at the right time and in the right place. And Mark talked to a couple of those different strategies to be able to do that. And nowhere better than in this region, innovating to transform the delivery of healthcare. And that's something that we are quite proud of collectively, some of the innovation that we've been able to both drive and support in this region.
So in addition to the standard hospital services you'd expect, emergency department, medicine, surgery for Grand River and ourselves, things like childbirth and children's and mental health, our hospitals serve the communities of Waterloo, Wellington, and beyond through regional programs noted on the screen. In the interest of time, I won't read them all, but what this list says is that we're working collaboratively together to ensure that the specializations complement each other and to avoid duplication of services. Specialization builds trust. It demonstrates the talent of our teams, and it helps to attract top medical talent to our region. I'll take the next slide. Regionally, as Ron said, we've added more than 200 permanent beds to the system through joint advocacy work that we undertook during the pandemic and beyond. And while this is welcomed, it's not enough, and we continue to need to advocate for the needs of our emerging and current hospitals, as well as the communities that they serve. For example, at Freeport, there's a need for additional beds. Yet we received some funding through the COVID, but that funding did not continue post-pandemic. In Cambridge, through investments from provincial and the municipal governments, shout out to the region of Waterloo, the City of Cambridge, and the Township of North Dumfries, as well as the generosity of donors, we can consider the investment at Cambridge as the beginning of the regional hospital system updates that are needed for our communities in the region. Construction at Cambridge is set to finish this year, so mark October 19th as a community open house day. And in total, we'll have 200 beds in our new wing and our about to be opened refurbished wing. At that point, we'll still have 2 older units that can be considered for further redevelopment and meet for future needs. Mark.
Thanks, Patrick. What you're hearing is a real commitment to working together, and we do believe that we are stronger together. It's not only on the delivery of care services every day, but the work we're doing together in equity, diversity, and inclusion, raising the Pride flag together and sharing and Try Pride, but also our work with our Indigenous leaders and elders in truth and reconciliation. We've recently made a joint commitment as the three hospitals to work together with our Indigenous leaders, folks like Elder Mayangan Henry, Clarence Kakaji at Crowshield Lodge, and the team at SOHAC to look at how do we come together with our Indigenous leaders and partners for a joint service around serving both our Indigenous patients and community, but also creating better environments for Indigenous team members who work at our three hospitals. It's these kinds of collaborations that continue to foster partnerships that we are working collaboratively as three hospitals. We're also working closely with our innovation sector. You would have seen us launch recently a Care Next initiative to look at how do we make the hospitals a better place for our innovation and tech sector, our startup, to be able to work more collaboratively with our clinicians, to be able to innovate healthcare and look at how we really galvanize and collect the best of the region into our healthcare system as well. And of course, we have our Building the Future of Care Together effort between St. Mary's and Grand River, and maybe with the next slide. This is our effort around joining together. We are, I'll speak for a moment, sorry Patrick, about just the two. As two organizations over 100 years old, St. Mary's celebrates its 100th year anniversary. We are excited about the future of how we come together to look at building a new hospital for this region, to contribute and complement the great work done in Cambridge, to expand that capacity, that shortage that Ron talked about, to really address not only the needs of today, but the growing needs of our community. As we think about the build, we are also thinking about what happens at the St. Mary's site. And so launching in July, we're going to be starting work to look at what's the future of the St. Mary's site. The acute services of St. Mary's will shift into this new hospital. That's a great boon to the healthcare providers and the patients receiving care at St. Mary's every day and 100-year-old infrastructure. But once those services shift, we're looking at what is the future of the St. Mary's site? How do we still be a vibrant health and social service hub in this community to complement the hospital services that we're going to have in the new building? As we go to the next slide, the big question, of course, is what about the merger? And so we have talked and shared openly, and we had a great town hall earlier this week about our intent to merge. The board started out a collaborative process, and over the past year have come together and said, it makes more sense, let's put our community first. Let's look at how we work together to really deliver the best hospital care for our communities. And so we're in a process now to explore what that would mean, how we might come together, with the target that we would come together in a new organization as of next April. There is a lot of work underway, and I want to thank certainly all of our volunteer board members, some are here today, because it is a significant effort of time and resource and thought to really do this right and do this carefully for our communities. And so it's a great effort underway right now to look at how do we come together as one and build a new organization delivering hospital care for this community. Ron, I'll turn it back to you.
So on this slide, it's really about, what's the what and what's the why. And, let me first speak to joining together. That is what Mark was just talking about, the two hospitals making the decision to merge. And what that builds on is a 40-year history of a relationship. And so this is the next phase of that relationship. And what got us really thinking about this is last fall, we undertook a consultation process with people from the community, with patients, with our internal stakeholders around looking at the new hospital and how care should be delivered there. And almost to a person, the advice was, you need to integrate your services. You need to do it together. So we took that advice to heart and we brought that back to our boards and we undertook a discussion about what is the right next step. And that's how we ended up with moving towards one merged organization by April of next year. And you see many of the benefits that will come from that. And then the building together aspect of our two major projects is really how we create new infrastructure in this region and how we both renovate and expand and modernize infrastructure as well. So there's three components to that. There's the new hospital site, which is our priority project. There's a repurposing of the KW site to both ambulatory and urgent care. And then there's the expansion and renewal of the Freeport site. And as Mark was talking a little earlier, the St. Joe's Health System will also undergo a process of looking at what is the best use of the existing St. Mary's site. So just moving to the, thank you. Work is continuing on this project, and as I said, this is both redevelopment and a new hospital project as well. We've been really gratified with the input we've received so far around visioning for that new hospital. You can expect to see more consultation sessions, both around the merger and around building that new site over the upcoming months. And the approach we're taking as we look at visioning for the new hospital is not a hospital-centric one. It is a community well-being framework that we are using to actually guide the visioning for the new hospital. So if I just move to the next slide and turn it back to Mark.
Thanks, Ron. Ron mentioned that a year ago we started consultations around how we should design the new hospital. We heard from over 11,000 members of the community, which is an almost unheard of number compared to other communities across Ontario when they've done that same consultation. We then launched a new survey out right now at futureofcaretogether.ca, which asks what's important to you as we think towards this new hospital. What's important to you to the brand? What's important to you, the values? What's important to you in what we put first? And not surprising, the very first thing we heard is putting patients first and continuing to put our community first. It's a thank you that we've heard from our community so far, putting our community first. We've also heard the importance of compassionate care and maintaining that compassion that both organizations are known for, and to bring forward excellence and high quality care. These are traits that both hospitals, and I know Cambridge also carries today, and something that we need to carry forward into our hospitals. What I was excited to see as well is that we also need to carry forward innovation as a key element. As we think about the future of the hospital and the future of hospital services, that we are really innovating and thinking differently in this community. And so for the next slide, what it means today, though, is that the new build is about 10 years away. So we are still going to be operating in our facilities as we are today. The services that we have today at St. Mary's, KW, and Freeport, 3 sites of the 2 hospitals, will continue as they are today. We may see some shifts over time, but in general, our hospitals, as you've heard, are at capacity. We're delivering great, high-quality, world-class care every day in our specialized services, and will continue to do so over the facilities that we have. We're still going to be coming back to the community for your support in fundraising for new equipment that we use in the current hospitals today and then moved into the new building, to help us launch new programs as we contemplate bringing back neurosurgery to Grand River, as we continue to expand different cardiac programs at St. Mary's. We're going to continue to come to you for your support as a community, and you'll see efforts to look at where do we shift services into other community facilities while we expand and the demand on care grows every day. Ron?
So what's next on the horizon, anyways, for St. Mary's and Grand River? Our boards will complete the due diligence process, and that's well underway. We are also, as Mark was saying, we're engaged now in community consultations around the merger itself. You can expect to see more consultations around the new hospital. You can also expect to see consultations around the new identity for that new merged hospital, and that will likely come in the fall. And we'll be taking the visioning work that we get around the new hospital from the community and turning that into functional programming work that our teams will be doing along with patient and family advisors. And that will also inform our ongoing, quote-unquote, coping work that we need to do over the next 10 years. Mark spoke to the future of St. Mary's, and then the last thing that I would highlight is the site announcement around where will that new hospital be. Not for today, but in the not too distant future, we plan on holding an event at that site to announce that site officially. So just moving to our last slide. First, let me, on behalf of all 3 of us, again say thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and present and answer your questions. We look forward to continuing to join together with as 3 hospitals, but with the region as well, as we work together to be ready for 1 million. And that means new services, different services, expanding services, working differently. And we're looking forward to joining with the region to be able to do that. We're looking forward to building together. And we're hoping and counting on the advocacy of the people in the region to make sure we're able to bring that new hospital home to a region that is the fastest growing in the province and that needs it desperately. And then around growing together And that is really about how we collectively align our efforts so that we are in fact 1 million ready. With that, happy to answer questions. And the tough ones go to Mark, I think Patrick said. Am I recognizing? Are you recognizing?
Hi, thank you for this excellent presentation. This is Councillor Hunick representing the region of Waterloo. And so I'm just wondering, in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day especially, could you speak to consideration that's been given to with regard to Indigenous healthcare or Indigenous healthcare principles at the new site?
I didn't have a question, sorry.
So that's a great question around how are we considering Indigenous healthcare and Indigenous health principles at the new site. So we've engaged our Indigenous partners right from the beginning across Six Nations, the Mississaugas of the Credit, as well as local Indigenous leaders to help us first inform what's important about the site as we go out when we first sought the call for sites and asked for what's important to look at sites. We sought Indigenous expertise in terms of what are the criteria we have to evaluate the sites by. And so they were part of that early work. We have a journey as well coming up with our Indigenous leaders to walk the sites and understand from an Indigenous perspective, are the sites ready? What would this mean for us in terms of how we design? And as we look forward into that community well-being framework, it does also take into consideration Indigenous perspectives on land and land use, and so that's going to be an important element of our work going forward. We have today, with the benefit of partnerships at all three hospitals, through the Southwest Ontario Aboriginal Healing Centre and other partners, Indigenous patient navigators that help us navigate Indigenous patients and provide care, and that's something that we're continuing to grow. Again, the three hospitals together have made a commitment to expand those Indigenous health services over the coming decade, so not just waiting for the new hospital in 10 years from now as well. So we're excited to dig deeper into that journey. Thanks.
So, Councillor Cressman from Wilmot, and we have some of our residents migrate to Stratford in the west, and some migrate to Woodstock because they can get quicker service. They're not waiting in emergency departments for long. And I assume that's what you mean when you talk about coping mechanisms until we have new facilities, or is there other things up your sleeve?
I think if any one of us had the solution to it, one, it would be in place, and two, we'd be very rich people. Because it is a problem, actually, not just across the province, but across this country. And some of the efforts that Mark was talking about, although we frame them around ambulance offload time, some of that is not just about ambulance offload time. And in many ways, through our work, we both work as part of Ontario health teams. And a lot of that work is about actually preventing the need for the hospital visit in the first place. And that's really where the effort needs to go. I think all three of us would agree that we would much prefer to be investing in a successful system in the community that would reduce the need for hospital services. And that's, that is an objective for each of the OHTs, and that's why we're proud to support them.
Hi, I'm Mary Lou Rowe. I'm councillor with City of Waterloo. I wanted to just follow up a little bit with what Councillor Hunick was saying about specific care and consideration for the Indigenous community. And so my question is about, with the increasing population that we're going to see in the next 25 years, sort of what that looks like in terms of newcomers, because obviously as the population increases, the diversity is going to increase. So I'm thinking about culturally specific and appropriate care and what that might look like.
I'm happy to start and others can jump in. So if I think about our KW4 Ontario Health Team, so thinking quite locally in Waterloo and Kitchener and the townships, we've actually started a rapid access clinic for newcomers and refugees coming, because we have seen quite an influx into the community. And that's been a partnership with our community health center partners to look at how do we provide rapid access to primary care for new folks who don't have family physicians. That's one example of work we're doing. And thinking back to the emerge pressures and what else are we doing as different models, We also recently launched what we call the Prevent Clinic at St. Mary's. It is a clinic working upstream to support cardiorespiratory health for patients, again, who don't have family physicians, but have cardiac disease or respiratory disease. And we do see, especially among some of our newcomers, a high rate of cardiac disease. And so how do we help them upstream before they have that first heart incident and have to come to the hospital? So we are actively looking at how we support that work. And I would say within the walls of each of the organizations, we also are looking at how do we improve the knowledge and awareness of our teams about culturally safe care for many, many different communities, our Indigenous community members, but of course many of our other newcomer communities. And how do we continue to expand the nature of services, offer translation services, make sure they have peer support. So that's work that we're doing underway, but we know that pressure is going to grow significantly. I think even over the last 5 to 7 years, we've seen a significant shift in our community. We expect that to grow and change even more.
I think the only thing to add, Mark hit the translation services. I think as an example, so not waiting to a new hospital, we each have a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan or tactics that guide our work. We all migrated to a new video-based translation service, so it's more like FaceTime, so you're seeing the translator, the focus on education, creating that cultural safety. Today being Indigenous Peoples Day, we had Sarah Simbida who's the poet laureate for Smart Waterloo region, doing a lunch and learn with us and talking about Indigenous care and the barriers to Indigenous care that the healthcare system has, and how do we deconstruct those with 50 people in the room. And then she went around the room and asked each of us our commitment to making things better. So it's a focus for each of us every day, for sure.
And I don't think any of us would say we're at the end of the road on it, right? So we are at the beginning of that journey. We're proud of the start that we've made, and we all recognize, we have a long road ahead of us. Earlier this week at the town hall, I had the privilege of speaking with a newcomer to our community who had a terrible experience in my hospital. And she was generous enough to share that story with me, and it helps us to learn to be better. And I would say that in the walls of all 3 hospitals, that's what you have, is people that want to learn and be better. And we know that this is a community that is going to be not just larger, but much more diverse.
Doug Craig, City of Cambridge Regional Councillor. If I go back in a bit of history, in the late 1990s, there was a report put out about the needs of the 3 hospitals. And there was a tax levy that went across the region to raise extra funds. And we all supported that. Problem was that Cambridge is about 20 years behind the other hospitals, even though everybody started at the same starting line in terms of its completion. I mean, we're talking this year, October 19th. What I don't want to see happen again is Cambridge being left somewhere in the background. So I'm concerned about that. And I want to know, you talk about collaboration, working together. What assurances are we going to have in Cambridge that when the time comes to support further needs for Cambridge, we're going to see that collaboration come to the forefront?
Yeah, I obviously can't speak for the communities, so that would be a great question for the communities. But from a hospital standpoint, I would say it exists today. Right? This isn't about just St. Mary's and Grand River working on our own. The 3 of us work together on a regular basis. There's a long list of initiatives that we actually undertake together that benefit the residents of Cambridge just as much as they benefit anyone else that we serve in this region.
And the only thing I'd add from my perspective, I had a donor call me once the merger was announced, and I said to them, they said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, what do you think is going to happen?" And they said, "We're going to Cambridge Memorial Hospital become an urgent care center." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't even believe you're thinking that. We have 200 beds, the most technologically advanced hospital. $187 million invested into this. This isn't going to be an outpatient urgent care clinic. In terms of the planning assumptions for Grand River and St. Mary's, we were at the table. We gave our data and statistics. So they're not planning to grow services to take over and to replace Cambridge Memorial Hospital. We have 140,000 that's growing. We're going to be there 24/7 for it. I think what the mayor would like and what we want for all 147,000. So what does that future look like? How do we do it? How do we provide care? But as a hospital, the most intensive care, we have that capability now. Pandemic ready, all sorts of things built into our hospital to make it the most advanced hospital right now.
If I may, just to follow up on that, are you looking at a specific levy? I mean, hospitals are expensive, and I understand that. And I understand that the province will be asking the community, the regional community, for input with regards to fiscal support. Are you looking at an allotment across the region of Waterloo in terms of raising more funds that would be collected by the regional government?
Happy, yeah, the question that we expected coming in. First, we haven't started our detailed planning work on the local share. You're absolutely right. It is the norm across this province that local communities contribute to a service that serves the core needs of that community. What it looks like ultimately, that will depend on the discussions that we have with each of the municipalities and with the region itself.
Thank you very much.
Sue Foxton, Mayor of North Dumfries, Regional Councillor, and I'm proud of you guys. I'm proud of you guys that you have cooperated and supported each other beyond being seen before. And Cambridge, Doug, is above par, in my opinion, one of the best that we have. And the recognition that Cambridge supports this because they see the need for it and it's the right time. This is perfect, gentlemen, and I want to thank you for all you're doing. We're going in the right direction. Thanks.
That seems like a really nice note to end on, so thank you, Sue, for that. I just want to reiterate something two things actually, if I could, and that is that we look at this as a system, and I think that's why you see the three heads of the hospitals up here. And so there's nothing preventing people from South Kitchener going to Cambridge, just as the question was asked earlier about people going to Stratford or other hospitals. People go where the need is, and I know that we have Chief John Riches here from paramedics and his senior leadership, and they too take people to where they can get the care that they need. It was wonderful to see the slide that had offload delays being addressed, because I know that that's a constant issue for all of us as a community. The only other thing I would add to Doug's question is there are so many communities across the province of Ontario that are in line for a new hospital. And as much as our new hospital is very needed, and it is 10 years out, we have to keep our place in the line, and that local share will be something that we will have to deal with at some point in time, but we'll deal with it as a community because it will be a broadly addressed community issue. So I'd like to ask you all to join me in thanking Ron and Mark and Patrick for being here. So the next agenda item is blue box transition, next curbside contract and downtown service level review updates. And I have to tell you, we always talk about collaboration, cooperation, being innovative, and all of those really do define us as a community historically and currently. But I can't think of many things that put us on the map, in my view, growing up in this region, as the blue box, because we were the birthplace of the blue box. Having said that, great ideas need to be shared, and as time passes, they morph. So I'm going to ask John to come and fill us in on those important topics. I was once contemplating running for municipal council, and a friend of mine said to me, I don't know why you're running for municipal council, because who cares about garbage and roads and gutters? And I said, absolutely, everyone. Welcome, John.
Well, that's quite the segue, and thank you for that, Chair Redmond. Garbage following up on hospitals, I don't know, that's a new one, but we'll go with it. And the segue into the legacy and the blue box and the tradition here, I think is very telling for today. Actually, we've just recently completed a video that kind of goes over the blue box history here and given how important it is to this community and how proud we are of it. So I'd like to start with that, and hopefully that gives a good premise of where we're going, and then I'll get into the rest of the presentation. So.
Everything on the planet is recyclable. The Earth only has a limited amount of resources. Recovery of materials to reuse them or to recycle them helps to maintain a hope for our future. The Blue Box program originated in 1981 within the region of Waterloo and is the first curbside program in all of the world. It was coincided on Garbage Day with a segregated outlet for waste diverted materials like pop cans, bottles, newsprint, cardboard that were separated from trash voluntarily by residents. Niall Ludolf was the gentleman that was on the back of a garbage truck as a thrower, and he wanted to look at these materials as resources and not as waste. He got approval to be able to begin just a small pilot project. It was just a street and it was just a cardboard box. It was not a broad range of materials at first, but it was a trial to see, will this take off with the public? It was popular. People were interested. They saw it. Their friends asked them about it. Well, how come you got that and I didn't? And so on. I never dreamed that people would catch on to this being a way of life. Municipalities were 100% responsible for the cost of the program. And then legislation came in to require the brand owners, the producers of this packaging, to pay back municipalities on a cost recovery basis for half of the program. The change for Waterloo Region is that the brand owners are now fully responsible to not just place the product into the marketplace in Ontario, but they are responsible to retrieve, collect, to process, and reuse that material based on targets that the province has set. That transition period has been over a 3-year period, starting in 2023, for a complete changeover by Jan 1 of 2026. The future will be a harmonized blue box program with the same materials regardless of where you live. It'll grow as the years go by when more materials become recyclable and technology exists to recycle them. The legacy of the Blue Box program will continue to inspire improvement, and that opportunity for waste diversion will become one source, and so that harmony will produce good results in the future for everyone.
So I hope you enjoyed that. I think this is the actual inaugural playing of this in a more public setting. This has just been on our website this week, but I think it's a very telling video, and it makes my presentation go much quicker. I think I probably can skip the whole blue box stuff because Mike did a great job. I couldn't have done that. Like that was bang on. So kudos to Mike. So we'll jump into this. We'll start with blue box transition, as Chairman Redmond said, and the next collection contract, and then our downtown waste services review. So we've seen some of this, and Niall Ludolf. So next slide, please. So with most things, change is inevitable, evolution. The Blue Box program's been somewhat stagnant for a number of years, and we're moving into a new era where under a mandated system through the province, we're having to go through some changes. It is a bit bittersweet given the legacy we have here, but it's changing from this model of a shared responsibility of funding with municipalities where we operated the entire system, and it was roughly a 50-50 cost sharing, to fully funded and operated by the producers of the goods that go into the blue box into the future so that they can manage their own products sort of cradle to grave. Next slide, please. So this is to give it a bit of a representation of when I'm using terms like producers and pros and that. On the left side here, that's those companies and names. Those are probably very familiar to many folks. Those are the companies that generate and produce the packaging and products that go into the blue box material. And to the right is a company called Circular Materials, or a producer responsibility organization. They have the means, they are an umbrella organization that represents the majority of producers in the province. And they are in charge of rolling out the new transition program under the new regulation. So they're setting all the rules that we have to play by. There's another, from a regulatory perspective, the province has delegated authority and oversight to an enforcement agency, the Resource Productivity and Recovery Authority, REPRA. So they're going to make sure everyone plays by the rules. Next slide, please. Just for some history, the left side was our previous program, our existing program, and the right side is kind of going to be the new world. What's important here on the left side, there's a few things. With a lot of new policy and regulations, not everything's perfect. They got a lot of good things right, but there's some things missing here that impact how we're going to have to look at things moving forward. So we, under a current program, will collect from what we would call non-eligible property locations. So sometimes they're IC&I properties, like a commercial property or a daycare or a place of worship that's on our route that is no longer captured in the new regulation. So that's the unfortunate things with that. On the positive side, schools, public space areas and that will all now be captured under the new program, and so recycling should be, the access to it should be greater. Next slide, please. And as I just commented, here are some good examples that probably common to some folks in this room of what we see. The one on the left, you know, we have residents above commercial complexes. This is pretty common in the downtown cores. The figure on the right, we have a commercial entity in a residential, beside residential. So it's a mix mash, and it gets difficult in the world of who's eligible and who isn't eligible for the blue box program in the new world. Next slide, please. So as was noted in the video, it's one of the great things about this is we're harmonizing the program across the province. So if doesn't matter where you live, you go from one city to another city, to a town, to north, south, same products go into the blue box everywhere. And I think that was a common issue that we all faced, where every community had a different program, and it was confusing for those that maybe moved from one spot to another. So next slide, please. The other thing that's you know, again, progressive here is the old program, we looked at a 60% recovery collectively of all the materials going in the blue box. I will tell you, the region of Waterloo, we were always well above that number of 60%, but that's been in place since 2008. So one of the critical things and what will make this program a success, or what we'll need to make this program a success, is these targets on the right for all the different materials that go in the blue box that REPRA, as the authority, will have to keep an eye on the producers, and over time we'll get more capture of those materials that are going into the blue box. So next slide, please. So from a transition point of view, I use this word transition. What you heard in the video is it's basically a 2.5-year transition period from July 1st of 2023 to the end of 2025. So we're partway through. That's right across the province. The region of Waterloo transitioned in March of this year, and I'm hopeful that anyone in this room that's a resident here hasn't seen any impact at the curb. I've not heard lots of, or anything to a great degree in terms of impacts. So March of this year, same curbside contractors are collecting, same process is happening at the curb, and it's gone well to the best of our knowledge so far. Post-transition on the 2026, again, it goes to the full producer responsibility, full financial operational control. We aren't aware of all the changes that are going to occur, and it's understandable since they have full responsibility that there likely will be changes, and we're going to have to see how that meshes with everything else we do in the future. So next slide, please. So at a high level, you'll see here, this is how the program works today. Very simple. So on the left, collection, is still happening as it always has, and on the right, it goes to a receiving facility. So the producers, again, are responsible for collection, processing, all the promo and education, replacing, providing blue boxes to the community, and dealing with the complaints or concerns or inquiries of residents. So during the transition period, so to the end of 2025, a couple things that we're continuing to do is accept blue box materials at our public depot drop-offs. And we're also collecting non-eligibles that I talked about earlier from the locations we always collected from before, because we can during transition. Post-2026, those are not incorporated in the regulation, and we're going to have to talk to council and talk to the community and make some decisions on how we want to deal with it. It's a small number, a small amount of materials, but it is something that we're going to have to look at. One of the other things we're doing is from a receiving, on the right side, the receiving facility, we're acting as a subcontractor. Waste Management of Canada, you would know them by the green trucks typically, are under contract with Circular Materials to take all the materials that are coming in now, consolidate them, and ship them to processors. We're no longer in that processing game. But we are under subcontract with them to use our sites, so the material still gets dropped off at our sites, gets thrown on trucks and sent off, and we get paid for that, which is a good thing. Until their new facility is up and running, they are building a brand new receiving and recycling facility, and I know Mayor Foxton, Councillor Foxton, and Councillor James were with me earlier this week, and we had the opportunity to see the groundbreaking for Waste Management. It's going to be in North Dumfries. So they're aimed to be up and running by January 1, 2026, when the full transition is in. And then at that time, all the blue box materials will go to that site and get processed there and sent to markets. So next slide, please. So just summary on this. We opted out, the region opted out. We administered all these contracts before, including blue box, but we got out. We were leaving it to the private sector to do during the transition period. We had an opportunity to continue to administer those contracts, but there was too much risk operationally and financially. So it's, again, going seamlessly. The agreements are directly with Circular Materials and our curbside contractors to deal with the materials. We've agreed to some joint communication and education, which is working to make sure customer service continues well. The italics, we're looking at gaps or impacts, and as I mentioned, this comes up a few times, this non-eligible locations and some of these smaller items, we still need to determine what to do post-transition in 2026, and we'll be talking to council over the next little while about some of those things, as well as understanding this affects everyone in the room and all our colleagues and area municipal friends. We've been having conversations on this program in many ways. I've mentioned public space. That's the one that comes to example, where it has impacts maybe more at a area municipal level, and we're going to continue those conversations to see how that affects others and how this program will move forward. So. Okay, that's the excitement of Blue Box. Next in the agenda, the new collection contract. So given current supply chain, resourcing, planning constraints when it comes to the amount of vehicles and equipment needed to do a new contract, we have to plan well in advance and tender out or do proposals well in advance. Typically 18 months to 2 years is the lead time for the contractors to get equipment. We just had Regional Council approve our next contract that's going to commence in March 2026 in order to provide ample time for contractors to prep and be ready, and for us to work with the community to be ready. From a service level perspective, it will be the same as you see today in the sense of bi-weekly garbage, weekly organics, seasonal yard waste, bulky items, things like that. The methodology, however, will change, or how we're going to do things will change, and I'll discuss that in the next few slides. So, next slide, please. So first of all, challenges with manual collection. We're moving to a automated cart-based system. What we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're finding in industry is labor pool. It's just hard to maintain. And you can appreciate days like today or this week. It's extremely hot, and it's tough doing the type of manual labor when they're making 800 to 1,200 stops a day. So that's an industry-directed, it's moving in that area. Cart-based programs are very popular now and as the way of the future. Just looking here. So we can go to the next slide, please. Again, talking about the cart, health and safety is recognized as an issue. It's easier from the automated arm and the manual side of things. We keep hearing about WSIB claims and that. It's a tough job. So there's greater efficiencies with the carts. Safety risks are improved given cameras and how things are done, working in the cab of the truck. Less litter from windy days with the carts, and less pests to be routing through things. And again, it aligns with our strategic plan about create a competitive business supportive community to help attract, retain, and grow employees. Next slide, please. Some things aren't led to automation, though, and some of the bulkier items and seasonal yard waste will still continue to be collected manually. Next slide, please. One of the other changes is we're going to a 4-day collection week, Tuesday to Friday. So it eliminates most stat holidays, which are on Mondays. It tends to give us some backup day issues, so we're able to if we have an inclement weather or a truck breakdowns, that we have a day to catch up on things. But the other thing is it really does is it eliminates some overtime issues that occur at night, and it helps us with efficiencies of routes. And again, the common theme here is staff recruitment and labor pool. Next slide, please. And this one we're quite pleased with. We're going to alternative fuels. So the collection contractors will be using compressed natural gas and renewable natural gas, which is much better for the environment. It aligns again with strategic plan, strategic outcomes here at the region. And over the course of the contract, that actually pays for itself. Upfront capital costs are higher, but it's less risk to a contractor, and it is the way the industry is going. So next slide, please. So next steps on this, we're working on a communication and implementation plan. 4 phases. We start out with awareness for the community, preparation, implementation, reinforcement, and retention after the fact. We'll be coming back to council in the fall of this year with that plan, comprehensive for some input going forward and certainly hopefully approval. And that will spell out specifically the details of how we're going to work with the community and make this work. Next slide, please. So sort of an offshoot to this is what we're referring to as the Downtown Waste Services Review. We've got a long relationship with the downtowns and collecting from roughly 1,500 to 2,000 businesses across the region on a weekly basis. But we recognize there's a complexity to the waste from downtowns, mixed commercial, industrial, and residential. So we intentionally removed this from the residential contract I just spoke about, and have been discussing with stakeholders, looking at, how could we look at this in a new way moving forward. So it's been good. It's been great to work with our area municipalities and our contractors and the BIAs to look at this. Next slide, please. So as I noted, we collect from about 1,500 to 2,000 businesses downtown. The larger urban areas in the cities, Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, receive 6-day-a-week collection first thing in the morning, Monday to Saturday, 10-bag limit. There is no organics at this time, but there is a weekly recycling blue box and enhanced cardboard. And as I mentioned earlier, this is now going to be considered non-eligible under the new blue box transition program. Townships, with the exception of Wellesley and Belmont Village, Belmont Village and Kitchener also receive weekly garbage 10 bags and weekly recycling. So we have 10 distinct downtown cores with differing thoughts on how they want the service or what kind of service. And I will also note that the majority of businesses outside of the downtown service areas, estimate more than 40,000, do provide for their own service through private companies. And it is also not a mandated service, sorry, not a mandated, but it is historical practice here at the region, but also through the province, that downtowns have been part of residential contracts. So next slide, please. So we've recognized different wants and needs, different philosophies on time of day of collection, frequency and bag limits. We've heard things about space limitations. Waste set out after collection is problematic. You go through, sweep through, you get the waste, and then there's more bags showing up later in the day. It's very difficult at times to identify the source and volumes associated with the waste. And as I mentioned, sometimes we get questions about equity. A company that's, or a business that's just outside of a downtown area, wonder why they don't get service versus ones that are in a downtown area. So next slide, please. So we retained a consultant, Dillon Consultant, about a year ago, and we've been soliciting feedback, as I said, from primary stakeholders, the business improvement areas and downtown associations, our area municipal colleagues, and the collection contractors to obtain some information. We've completed jurisdictional scans of what's happening across the province in this area, in terms of downtown service provision. And we've also undertaken a survey of the business improvement areas on, what's in your waste, how many times you put material out, things like that. I would say that the existence of good data is not there across the province for downtown cores. We have lots of great data on residential stuff, but downtowns, no one does in any community in the province. So based on that, we've proposed three different types of options for future service and have gone back to the stakeholders and are soliciting feedback. Next slide, please. So additional consultation with the stakeholders is ongoing through the rest of this month and into early July. We're coming to a close soon. Our consultants reconciling the information and feedback gathered to date, and will be providing their thoughts and comments. And it's our intent to get back to Regional Council with a staff report in August, so it's coming up very quickly of this year, as we need to confirm a future direction with the existing collection contracts end in March 2026 in these areas. So we're going to have to make some decisions on how we're going to move forward. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I should mention, I forgot, we have examples of our carts that will be used for the next collection contract over here, and we can certainly roll them out. No one will jump out of them, I don't think, or anything like that. But certainly you can take a look and we can move them around and you can see them. I know that it's of interest to a lot of people. But any questions that anyone may have?
Hi, John.
Hi, Sue.
Under next steps, can you put that slide back up, which was the second last slide?
Hopefully someone can put it up.
The one before that. There. That round one, is that a compost bin?
Oh my goodness. Are you talking the one on the far right?
Yes, the second from the end.
It would be, or it could be a garbage, it's just a bin. It's an example of a cart.
Oh, I thought you were going to try and get us to compost. I kind of like that one.
Well, we are doing that with the green carts as part of the next collection contract.
Thank you.
Oh, so, sorry. And to your point, I should mention this, as of the business in the downtown area, certainly a lot of the feedback is, and what we're seeing is, the garbage that's being set out at the curb does emulate what you see at a residential property, in the sense of there's still a fair bit of blue box material in that bag, and certainly lots of organics. So we're certainly looking at organics collection as part of future downtown work, and that'll be coming forward. Yeah.
Thanks, John. Dave Schneider, City of Kitchener. Great report, and thanks for all the hard work that's gone into this. It's very exciting. Just wondering down the road if there's been any thought or looking into using waste to produce energy as they do in Sweden and divert waste from landfill and burn it to create energy.
Yes, for sure. I would say our existing waste management master plan actually had one of the recommendations was to look at the feasibility of waste energy, which we did. And I will tell you, it's very feasible. And it is occurring in this province in particular, in Durham and York region, and in Peel. However, it is quite expensive. And we have to acknowledge that, we know that. It is on our radar. We are out looking at a refresh of our strategic view on our master plan. So we will be reviewing this concept a bit in the future, but right now it's kind of parked.
Hi, Mary Lou from City of Waterloo again. I understand the difficulties in staff retention in this sector, and that this is industry driven, but I'm just curious if there's any understanding of the impact on jobs in the region in terms of collection and that sort of thing.
I think it's difficult for me to comment on what's going to occur specifically with all the different contracts. I would suggest, though, I don't anticipate you're going to see a significant change. In fact, I anticipate you'll maybe see more things will come out of that, more work. But it's, yeah, so, you know, the number of trucks under these new programs, and that there are actually a few more, so there's some, you know, additional people working on those trucks and that. So I don't anticipate we're going to see a significant change.
John, I'm told there's one online. I don't know who it is. Councillor Ioannidis?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I do apologize. I may have missed part of the presentation, so that may have been covered in your presentation. But one of the questions I have is with regards to the bins, because I often get a lot of complaints from residents with regards to their bins being placed outside. And now that I see that these bins are going to be big, more likely a lot of them will now be all being stored outside rather than their garages. So is there any thought to that at all?
It's certainly a common question. And what we are doing, we're collecting all the learnings from other communities that have already gone through this and others that will and are looking at this. And we certainly will come up with some ideas or some thoughts. I'm not sure we can get away from in certain situations where you might have to have them outside, but it is something that we're aware of and we'll address as part of that communication and implementation plan.
Okay. I guess my other question would be with regards to collection. So one of the common questions I get a lot from residents is why is garbage collected once every 2 weeks, and why not recycling why not switch it up? So is it going to be every week now with the system, or is it still going to be the same?
No, the intent is to stay every other week with garbage, and it's still weekly green bin and that. And that was past levels of service that have been, again, endorsed by council in the sense that the intent there is the material you put out to the curb shouldn't change. Like the amount you put out, it's getting people and helping people to recognize if we can get that organics put in the organics bin. And certainly I know the recycling has gone off to another group, but if they're doing their part, less and less material should be in the garbage. So every other week is sufficient to deal with what is left that can't be recycled or can't go into organics. So it's driven by, climate adaptation and environmental initiatives.
Okay, I do understand that. And I understand about the climate and wanting to help support the climate and sustainability. But I think one of the offshoots that I've seen dramatically within the switch of this from every 2 weeks is I've noticed a lot of pests, and I've seen significant amount of rodents and of coyotes ever since that switch. So I would really hope that there is a way to look at doing this, because those are one of the major complaints that I get from residents on a regular basis.
I guess
It happens to be near the landfill. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's changed, and maybe because the landfill is now, the cells are more on my side of Kitchener, so maybe that could be the case.
We'll certainly keep an eye on that, look into it. I would say from the curbside, in a perfect world, if all the organics are getting even now into the green bin, and nothing organic goes into a garbage bag, those issues with pests would either be eliminated or at least be reduced significantly. And that's the message and the education we're trying to promote. And I think with the new program, with the carts, even in those cases where, I'm not perfect, I know a lot of people, like, you don't get all your organics into your organics bin, but with the carts, it'll even be that much better from a perspective of dealing with pests.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's on the radar, because those are that I deal with on a regular basis. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John, for that excellent presentation. Chantal, again, from the region of Waterloo. I can't remember my question. It was so long ago that I was going to ask it. Maybe it wasn't as important as I thought. Someone else go.
When you figure it out, you can let me know.
Okay. Oh, you're good? Okay. Oh.
Sorry. The comment that you made, John, about cradle to grave, I find that really good. I'm just wondering how exactly that works, because there's several different products from several different producers in my blue box, and I'm assuming they're not all gonna show up and sort it for me. So how does that look like, and what's the accountability process there?
So I can only speak to what's happening today is going to continue to the end of 2025 in a consistent manner. Post 2026, I anticipate it will only build on what's happening today, and there will still be certainly the requirement for all those materials. So under the regulation, if you are putting packaging or producing paper, and you're going to get captured within the regulation, and there's going to be a requirement for you as the producer of that material to actually have some mechanism to recycle it or change your packaging. So, going by the way it's going to go, with targets increasing and the authority overseeing things, one should expect it to get better, and you should see more things that today we think, oh, shouldn't that be recycled, will be recycled. So.
Hi, thank you. Sherry Roberts, City of Cambridge. I just have two questions. So the first one, if we have the automated trucks, how will we be managing our bulky garbage pickup days, or will those no longer be happening?
Yeah, I quickly went over that, and I probably should have been more clear. So we are going to continue with the bulky day every other, so on garbage week. So anything of bulk will get picked up separately. It just can't be done in this manner. So there is a separate truck. They will collect bulky items. We know that from time to time people will have, whether it's furniture or things like that. So that will continue.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I must have missed that. Secondly, I just noticed that the cans are quite large, and I imagine when they're full of garbage, quite heavy. So have you had an opportunity to consult with the disability community or senior citizens to ensure that folks are going to be able to get them out to the curb independently?
That's a great question, and sorry. Okay. Okay.
from what I understand from Commissioner Rose, I could be understanding this wrong, but from what I understand from her is that there is specific accessibility guidelines in the policies related to the trucks, and that the folks driving the trucks will be responsible to make sure the bins are on the curb and placed back accordingly to where people need them to be.
I couldn't have said it better myself, but that is correct. And even under the current program, and this may not be known all the time, and I appreciate maybe we need to educate or bring it out there more, we have a walk-up service and those things to help in those situations. Actually, in other communities so far that are using the carts because of the role and depending on the situation, as opposed to lugging out a bag or a Rubbermaid container with no wheels, it's actually been easier to do it. So.
Hi, John. Good to see you again. Just two questions. One, in terms of this program, as I'm speaking with a lot of residents who are moving from communities that already have the pickup, can you just speak to where that is in terms of some of our neighboring communities? And then the other part is around our bag tag program. So will this still be in place, or will now this replace that?
So your first question is, oh, excellent. Here we go.
Come on, a little more enthusiasm.
Yeah. And hopefully no one will jump out or nothing will come out of it. It is becoming common practice. So for many years, I guess, and certainly for larger and smaller rural contracts. So City of Toronto, City of Guelph, all of like a lot of the Huron, Bruce area, are doing it. Simcoe just recently put it. Halton's going next year. They're going to and again, it's the direction of where things are at. So bag tags, yes, thank you. We will continue with the bag tag program. So in those instances where someone has, on occasion, additional bags that would go beyond the limitations of the cart, they can purchase a bag tag and put out a bag, and we'll collect it. So, thank you, Chair Redmond.
I've always wanted to be Vanna White.
You do a fine job. So.
Hello, John. Ross Earnshaw, Ward 4 Councillor, City of Cambridge. One of your slides spoke of the problem of garbage being put at the curb after the collection time. I'm the downtown councillor ward, a lot of businesses down there, and what I hear from them repeatedly is that they go home at the end of their day, they put their garbage at the curb in the evening, and overnight it's raided, whether by people or by animals. Consequently, the city is required to expend funds to have people come and clean up the area virtually every day. Is there any possibility of changing the collection time from early morning to possibly late evening to avoid that problem in the downtown cores? Thanks.
So thank you for the question. It is a common comment made. I think under the existing contract, it is difficult. It's come up before. Certainly, it would be something that could be contemplated, but it would come at a cost. But for the new service, I think the other thing, and again, there's different options on the table. What you're looking at here, even if it's morning service, could help quite a bit because there's abilities to lock and keep things. So certainly we know rodents and pests are a big issue. There's other things too, with the bags in particular being ripped open. And I think that's the issue with bags. So we're starting to see that even in downtown cores when we do our jurisdictional scans, that cart collection or other types of collection where you're getting away from those bags that are exposed may be a better alternative moving forward. So we're certainly looking at that too.
Yes, Councillor Cressman from Wilmot. Wondering about rural residents. I've got a half-mile lane, so it's some distance to the curb. Tossing them on the back of my pickup isn't an option, so I guess I'll be using my loader tractor. I assume I only get one as compared to three, and have you done a comparison on cubic feet or capacity versus three regular-sized garbage cans?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's come up a few times. And again, I'll go back to lessons learned in other communities. We know this is happening in rural communities, so we'll have all sorts of messaging on some of the best ways to get the carts out there, how others have dealt with it. There won't be one perfect scenario, but I think there's some issues we can address. On your question about carts, where did the big one go? Okay, so this one over here, I guess you call it a bigger one, that is equivalent to our current level of service, actually a little bit more of 3 bags every other week, so about 3.5. So, and one thing to keep in mind, and yeah, it looks like a big footprint. It is relatively good footprint, but they're vertical, and if, for those that might put out thank you, Julie, put out a Rubbermaid container that if you actually look at the footprint of a garbage can, it's not that much different. It's just larger and it comes up. So every property will be unique, but that's our default one. This one here is a smaller option, and I think we recognize, and one of the hopes is if more stuff is going to recycling, more stuff's going to the green bin, organics, this becomes more the norm in the future, and we can get the smaller garbage. So there will be some options available, but we again, will be coming forward with some details on how that works, recognizing as a default for most of the community, we'll stick with this one, and then we'll be looking at this.
Okay, John, the next question's online. I presume it's Councillor Wright.
Thanks. I'm joining you from online here. So I'm Julie Wright from Ward 7 in Uptown Waterloo. First of all, I have a comment. I'm really looking forward to some of these changes. We've obviously seen such a huge growth across our community, and we're definitely seeing massive growth in our users of our downtown areas. The economic return on that is really significant, and we can't lose sight of that when we're talking about our BIAs, our downtown cores. Obviously, we have the challenging conditions of no Sunday collection, which coincides with peak garbage in Uptown Waterloo. As Ionitis mentioned, there's a proliferation of critters. Part of that is displacement from construction and nice nesting habitats. So it does make for really challenging conditions, and we really appreciate your collaboration on the interim solutions to those problems. We also have the issue of how we work on public engagement about waste diversion. And so I'm just wondering if you could comment on that, as well as who will fund it going forward as we go through this transition in services and responsibilities.
So if I could just clarify, is this specific to downtown waste services or all services?
To all services, because I think waste diversion is a community responsibility.
Yeah, so we certainly have quite a fulsome communication and education program on waste diversion. We do need to refresh it from time to time, and no better time with a new program coming into place to kind of look at some new either branding or new ways of doing things. We have many resources currently, social media, the website, our Waste app, WasteWiz app is fantastic. We have more than 60,000 people using it. But to that point, we can always do more, and we can always look at different things. I mentioned a waste management strategic review earlier that we're embarking on. Part of that will involve engagement with the community that will pick up on these sort of things as well. So, it's certainly front and center, and will be part of our ongoing efforts to educate and try and move us in the right direction. I think you had a second question. I might have missed the second part.
No, my first was just a comment, so thank you for that. I think that the main thing for us is with so many people coming to the community who are not familiar with the community, new residents, as well as the explosion in the student population, we have to find ways to get to the new residents of our community and help them navigate the system.
Yes, agreed.
Hi, John. Jim Erb, Region of Waterloo Councillor. how specific does the placement of the, or how specific is the placement of the bin going to have to be in order for it to be picked up? Like, and is that going to be part of the education?
Yeah, that'll be part of the education. I can't say how specific, but I can tell you that the technology's come a long way. The trucks and the arms on them have quite the length of extension that they can go, recognizing issues in many areas where you're working around cars, or we know in this the proliferation of bike lanes and things like that that remove you further from the curb. We're going to have to address that and get in to pick up. So it'll come out in the details, but it will be addressed.
But the handle obviously has to be facing towards the vehicle. That's
that's the sort of thing that'll come out in that. But there is an ability for the operator, I think, to manipulate the carts themselves. But that's the sort of thing that will be, certainly how to orient it.
Thank you again. In line with Councillor Wright's question, our community is becoming increasingly diverse. And so I'm just wondering about promotional or educational materials in various languages and various formats so that everyone can access them.
That's exactly what we're looking at, and we've started to do some of that already. And again, I think that will be built right into our plan when we come later this fall to Regional Council on the different techniques and activities that we're going to need to do to make a rollout of this nature a success. Everything it's evolving, and we're having to recognize that. We need to be conscious of that. I have confidence in our ability to do this and do it well, because our community really responds well. And even when we made the changes to the last contract to go bi-weekly and all that, I know there was a lot of concern, and within a month, 2 weeks, a lot of there's still, it's not perfect, but so we're looking to replicate that kind of process from communication and education and address those issues to make it as seamless as possible. Am I off the hook?
So I'm not seeing any more questions, and John, I think I neglected to give everybody your title. John Arsenault, Director of Waste Management with the region. Thank you very much for being here. I obviously am not a good Vanna White, because I know that these bins don't particularly show up well if you're just looking for the view from the screen. So I want to thank you all for coming, and those who have joined us online, and just to say that, just to reiterate that we all do very important work. It's work that we do collectively, and it's work that we do collaboratively. So thank you very much for what you do to make sure that our community is the best place in the world to live, which I believe it is, and where it's the best place to live, work, play, and raise a family. So thank you all for coming. I think we have a little bit of time to socialize, which I'm sorry people virtually won't be able to do. I hope you have a great summer, and again, thank you for all the work on behalf of the 675,000 people that now call Waterloo Region home.